Hello, folks. I'm the old sergeant. A United States Space Force commander was fired from his post after he discussed the infiltration of Marxist ideology into the U.S. military on a podcast. Lieutenant Colonel Mathew Lohmeier was the commander of the 11th Space Warning Squadron at Buckley Air Force Base, Aurora, Colorado. He was fired by the head of the Space Operations Command, Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting, over the loss of confidence in his ability to lead. A Space Force spokesman explained this decision was based on public comments made by Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier in a recent podcast. Lieutenant General Whiting has initiated a command-directed investigation on whether these comments constituted prohibited partisan political activity. What the frack? Being against Marxism is now partisan political activity? The Democrat leadership of the country and the military are openly saying they are Marxists. I have heard reports from enlisted personnel that the officer corps is lost. I would like to know who ordered the firing. If it was Lieutenant General Whiting, he should be removed by his superior over a loss of confidence in his ability to lead. Otherwise, the general is a Marxist or a coward because he didn't refuse to fire Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier and hand in his stars. Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeier states his chain of command, public affairs, and legal counsel all knew about his opposition to Marxism because they knew about his recently self-published book, Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military. My intent never has been to engage in partisan politics. I have written a book about a particular political ideology, Marxism, in the hope that our Defense Department might return to being politically nonpartisan in the future as it has honorably done throughout history, Lohmeier stated. Marxism, communism, has been considered an existential threat to Americans as the ideology runs counter to the U.S. Constitution. We need to support this officer by telling our politicians about the Lieutenant Colonel and how much we disdain the actions taken against him. In addition, buy his book, Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military. As of this recording, the book is sold out at Amazon. I have backordered my copy. After I sign off, I'm going to have Computer Voice Ellie tell you about the book, so stay tuned. As his career in the military is over, let's make this man rich. I am the old sergeant. Stay informed, prepared, active, prayerful, and as always, stay vigilant. And now, here is Ellie.
Irresistible Revolution, Marxism's Goal of Conquest and the Unmaking of the American Military. Irresistible Revolution is a timely and bold contribution from an active-duty Space Force lieutenant colonel who sees the impact of a neo-Marxist agenda at the ground level within our armed forces. In it, author Mathew Lohmeier provides answers to many important questions that Americans are currently asking. Is systemic racism a reality, or is much of our talk about race merely a rhetorical tool used to divide Americans? Why has the Defense Department suddenly shifted to a focus on extremism within the ranks? Is there really a white supremacy or white nationalist problem within our armed forces? Are the many diversity and inclusion trainings that are being conducted in our federal agencies helping solve these problems, or are they creating conflict where none previously existed? What is Marxism, and what does it have to do with all of this? Though pundits often appear perplexed by current policy decisions being made in our country, our apparent missteps are part of a long-standing plot against America, patiently and methodically pursued by those with a mind intent on the overthrow of the U.S. government and its replacement with a communist dictatorship. Unfortunately, many of those now furthering that agenda do so unwittingly. After becoming aware of the Marxist conquest of American society, you will never again look at things in the same way. Mainstream media, social media, the public education system, including universities, as well as federal agencies, have all become vessels of various schools of thought that are rooted in Marxist ideology, an ideology bent on the destruction of America's history, of Western tradition, specifically Judeo-Christian values, and of patriotism and conservatism. Marxism's sinister and dark agenda has led the country into what some have called a cold civil war. The problem has become systemic, a tragedy considering that the defeat of Marxist communist ideology was the very cause against which our nation spent great treasures of blood and iron during much of the 20th century. The book's three-part framework begins with a discussion of the greatness of the American ideal, including the importance of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the notions of individual and civil liberties, transitions to an examination of the history and overarching narrative of Marxist ideology, specifically Marx's and Engels' Communist Manifesto, wherein the oppressor versus oppressed narrative is developed, and concludes by looking into the ongoing transformation of America's military culture and military policy, while also providing a warning about where the country is headed if we choose to not make an immediate course correction. Irresistible Revolution also covers a breadth of hot topics everyone is hearing and talking about, topics that actually have implications for our national security: woke ideology, cancel culture, identity politics, the Black Lives Matter movement, anti-racism, postmodernism, political correctness, and critical and cynical theories, to include critical race theory. Lohmeier's penetrating and common-sense look at current events within our military and across American society is a sublimely unique contribution that is certain to be shared, referenced, and discussed for years to come. Every American, including every U.S. military service member, needs to read and understand the Irresistible Revolution.